Hi everyone, this is Sam, and I'm going to try to take an objective and honest look at a church tradition quite a bit different than my own. I'm a member of the Evangelical Free Church, and the tradition I'd like to talk about is the Anglican Church in America, which means I'm focusing primarily before the Revolution and during the Revolution, because afterward, the churches associated with the Church of England had their ties with England loosened, and so they started being referred to as the Episcopal Church to differentiate them. And one of the important differences between my own tradition and the Anglican tradition is the tie between the state and the church. In England, it's obviously the Church of England's church. The church is sponsored by the government. And if you recall in our readings from Noel, there was even religious persecution from the centers. And in the colonies, Virginia, for instance, was an Anglican colony. That's the church that it sponsored. And in Maryland as well, the clergymen were paid via a tax of sorts assessed on the parishioners. And oftentimes this payment would take the form of tobacco. So the clergyman would be given a certain weight of tobacco, which they could turn around and sell for a profit. And this actually became a point of contention because the colonial government in Maryland wanted to stop making payments in tobacco and just pay a flat rate. And many clergymen fought against this. They even wrote to England asking for involvement in this matter. And another area of contention had to do with the church's tradition of clergymen being ordained only by a bishop. And in America, there was no Anglican bishop. The bishop in charge of the colonies actually resided in London. So anyone wanting to be ordained had to go over to England, be ordained, and then come back. It's a perilous journey to cross the Atlantic Ocean. And so they were rather short-handed, as it were. They wanted to be able to have more clergymen in America. So many of the priests wanted a bishop. But part of the tradition of the Anglican Church at this time period was that the bishop wielded a certain amount of political power. And if you remember in Noel, when the Episcopal Church finally did get bishops, they renounced their political power. And so this issue of the bishop was not just a religious matter, but really threatened many of the patriots with English control of their local governments. Another area of contention having to do with the Anglican tradition was the oath that clergymen had to take when they were ordained. They had to swear fidelity to the church's constitution, to the laws of the church. They also were to pray for the king. And so there was a type of loyalty that many clergymen felt to the government of England, and so much so that they felt that there was a bond between the church and the state, which they couldn't break. And so a clergyman like Jonathan Boucher would preach against the revolution, and there was a tradition in the Anglican Church of political sermons, and Boucher himself references this. But many of the loyalists were Anglican, and it just brings to light the fact that the revolution really had religious foundations both on the patriot side and the loyalist side. And it really calls into question what church traditions kind of push people towards. And I'd like to ask the question in closing is, do you think the loyalists were right in referencing their church tradition to remain loyal? What are your thoughts about the stance that they took? Because the church tradition really is important during the Revolutionary era. Thank you for listening.